Okay, everyone, welcome and good morning to you for this local pension board on the 2nd of December 2021. We'll kick off straight with the agenda. For any apologies for absence. Jeremy, have you?
No apologies, Chair.
Fabulous.
Chair, I might have to leave. I've got another meeting at 11:30. So,
All right, Dave, yeah.
So if you haven't finished, then I'll have to leave at 11:30. I do apologise.
Okay, well, if you have to go and I haven't got the chance to say thank you, I'll say it now in advance. That's great. Thanks, David. Okay, second agenda item is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. Jeremy has, or at least Democratic Services have sent us a form. Jeff, do we have to fill it in every time, or can we just put one in for unless it changes?
I was thinking that myself, but I'll defer to my legal colleague in due course. But
yes,
I think the guidance we've had is
before, but I think the motion officer decided she wanted it for everyone. Because not to have a block declaration. We have had this conversation.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Steph, and I'm
yes.
sure now you mentioned it, I can remember it. And,
I'm not a member of the pension scheme, so I have no personal interest to declare.
Oh, you're lucky then. You've got no forms to fill in, Peter. That's good.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, Steph, I think they still have to make a verbal declaration at the meeting as well.
Yes.
So we still have to go around and make a verbal declaration.
All right. So I noticed that there's not a roll call. So should we include that perhaps in the agenda so you can make the declaration?
Is that okay with you, Jeremy? If you could include that.
Whatever the chairman wants, really. No problem.
Okay.
Well, if we've got to do it, I wouldn't want to forget it. That's the main thing. I mean, that's the worst thing is that we don't do it, and then. So, all right. Well, I'll start. I feel like I'm Alan Locke. I'm the chair of the local pension board, and I have declarations of interest which I've submitted. Ian.
Yes, I've got an interest in the whole agenda because I'm a member of the LGPS.
Okay, I'll go down there. And Caroline?
I think she's recording. I think she's...
Okay, all right. Yeah. Sorry. This is where we got into trouble. We're just in conversation with Ian, actually, about democratic declarations. Right. David, sorry.
I'm a member of the scheme. That's my declaration of interest. I'm a member of the scheme, the whole agenda.
Okay. Jeff, have you got to do that as well?
Yeah, officers have to as well. Yes, I've got a personal interest in the agenda as a whole, as I'm a member of the LGPS.
Okay, Jeremy?
Yeah, member of the local government pension scheme as well, Chair.
Karen?
I'm a member of the local government pension scheme as a whole.
Okay, Peter? No, you haven't. That's right. Yeah, good. Rosemary? Right. I think try Stephanie then. Stephanie, I suppose you have
to. Personal interest member of the pension scheme and the agenda as a whole.
All right, we will check with Rosemary en route then, but as far as I can see, that's everyone who's here.
Chairman, Rosemary did return the form to me, so she did have an interest as well. So I'm not sure if she can microphone's working, but she did return the form to me.
Okay.
As a member of the local government pension board scheme.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it seems from what Stephanie said, they do need to make a verbal declaration as well. So perhaps we can chase that up through the meeting somewhere. Okay. Going on to item agenda 3, then the minutes. Hopefully everyone's read the minutes, and they are 6 pages long. So pages 1 through to 6. Are there any alterations or any comments to make on the minutes from anyone? Don't see any hands up or recognition of that. Okay. Could I have someone then to put forward that they are a true record, please?
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. Rosemary. Okay. All right, Rosemary. Thanks so much. Right. Okay. So we'll go on then to the reports. This is where Jeff has to take a deep breath, I think, because he's going to talk for a while. So 4A then, the ISA report. Jeff, thanks so much.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm just responding to Rosemary on the chat, just to indicate to her if she has any questions, if she wants to put them
Good.
via the chat, because her microphone is not working apparently. So
can we just check that she's okay with the minutes? I know we've okayed them, but
I'm just waiting for Rosemary, would you like to confirm you're happy with the minutes? I don't think Rosemary was in attendance at the last meeting, I don't think, anyway, so I don't think she would be able to confirm them anyway.
All right, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So if you're happy to proceed to the next item,
I am,
Chairman.
Jeff, thanks so much, yeah.
As Chairman's indicated, it's the ISA 260 report, and it's Audit Wales's report on the health of the financial statements presented to them for audit. If you recall, Chairman and local pension board members, you received the presented statement of accounts and annual report earlier in the year in draft form that Karen produced for the first time as a single document. Historically, it was always two documents: the financial statements and then subsequently the annual report. Upon advice and guidance from Audit Wales, they indicated that it would be pragmatic and streamline the process if they could be consolidated into one document. That was a Herculean task, an ask of Karen to do that within the timescale. However, she did it and presented those documents to audit in line with their required timetable. External audit, because of other constraints and pressures with respect to their other public sector clients, only undertook the audit of the pension scheme annual report in September of this year, and subsequently produced this ISA 260 in October of this year. And as you can see within the report, there's a very pleasing ISA 260 in terms of audit findings. Page 10 of your papers and page 4 of the audit report indicates the scope of their audit, where they're looking to give assurance and setting a materiality limit. And as you can see that on point 4 of that page there, the materiality limit that they set this year was £26.2 million. So basically anything underneath £26.2 million, it's sort of a notional threshold that they deem irrelevant and immaterial to report on. Obviously, again, they noted the continuing impact of COVID on only the the uncertainty around some of the valuations, perhaps, and also the impact on them being able to complete their audit and undertake their work, which historically they would have done physically. However, because of constraints still in existence, they've done completely remotely again for the second year in terms of their audit work. So as you can see, those of you with a long memory from last year, you'll see that their audit findings are greatly reduced in terms of number from last year. So again, this is testament to the great work from Karen in keeping their audit findings to a minimum, and the impact of those findings are again very insignificant. So as you can see in Exhibit 2, the summary of matters encountered and resolved during the 2021 audit. The first one being year-end investment valuations. You may recall that last year, when we reported to you at last year's annual report on financial statements, there was a great deal of uncertainty at year-end because of COVID, how it was impacting valuations and getting firm valuations on especially physical assets like property, etc. Those valuation uncertainties weren't there this year. They had enough audit comfort around the fair value of investment assets in the 2021 financial statements. So no adjustments were required to be made in respect of that. And also the ongoing impact of the McLeod legal case, which is still ongoing. Local pension board are well used to hearing updates on that ongoing ongoing issue, in that we're still awaiting the formal remedy from the Government Secretary Department and the Ministry of well, they're called something else now. Formerly the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. I think they're DCLOG now, aren't they? Rather than MCLOG. But we're still awaiting formal guidance on how to actually implement the formal remedy. And I think the proposed formal remedies are subject to a subsequent legal review, I think, which some parties are preparing in the wings. So expect this saga to go on, as I suspect. But the assumptions and provisions made within the actual valuation by our actuaries are deemed prudent enough to take that into account. And again, there have been no further proposed changes to the statement of accounts as a result of the McLeod issue. This next issue, this is the one perhaps if you read it cold, you'd perhaps think, oh, £23.2 million, a misstatement. This is as a result of income to Swansea from the Wales Pension Partnership. However, because of timing issues and reporting issues with WPP, they didn't notify us of those dividend payments until after the 1920 accounts had been closed, and they were in respect of 1920. So we recognised them in 2021. However, we noted that they were and should have been recognised in 1920. External audit recognised that was the only sensible treatment of that income. However, they're obliged to disclose it as an amendment, but they recognise that as a transaction, we as an admin authority had no option but to treat it the way that Karen treated it in the financial statements, and that was in respect of £23.2 million. Those of you will notice that is below the materiality limit. However, they still felt it significant enough to include it in this schedule.
Yeah. Okay.
And then finally, the AVCs. Again, this is a reporting matter. To be clear, additional voluntary contributions do not form any part of the balance sheet of the pension funds. These are balances made and collected on behalf of individuals. As I say, individual members of the scheme have the option to make additional voluntary contributions, should they so wish, to enhance their pensions at retirement, and these are done via a third-party provider, currently the Prudential. We're required to report on these third-party balances, but to be clear, they form no part of the LGPS balance sheet whatsoever. It's purely a reporting requirement, and because of some delays in reporting from the AVC provider Prudential, we haven't been able to provide an update of those balances outstanding. However, again, I want to refer members to the materiality limit that I referred to earlier on. These sums are so below that materiality limit. Auditors have agreed that we can even stop reporting on this element going forward because it is so minor and trivial. So again, they've reported to here for information and for completeness, but going forward, we shall not have to report on AVC balances going forward, again to streamline the financial statements and the annual report. So in short, it's a very, very pleasing ISA 260, and it results in a fully unqualified audit opinion provided by the Auditor General, and noting the constraints and challenges faced by Karen and her team in producing this combined document within those timescales. It's a great credit to her and her colleagues in managing to do that with so few misstatements and subsequent audit issues raised. Just for information, this job for Karen and her team gets more difficult year on year. as the complexity and you know, intricacies of the accounting for the different assets that we are now requiring because of the de-risking strategy. Obviously, historically, the assets held would have largely been equities, bonds, and cash back in the simple days. However, now that we're looking to address the investment risk and the funding risk within the portfolio, we are diversifying into other assets like infrastructure, property, you know, renewables, solar, wind, etc. These real assets are very much more complicated to account for and deal with in the financial statements. And again, I'd like to thank Karen and her team for dealing and addressing those issues in a timely manner and to the satisfaction of Audit Wales. Thanks, Chairman.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And well, can we, as a board, formally note then, Jeremy, that we also thank Karen and her team, because it's no mean feat. I mean, it wasn't so long ago we were not getting things in on time, let alone getting them in and with no, you know, no mistakes. So that's fabulous. So thank you, Karen. Thank you, team, for doing such a sound job. It is, as Jeff said, it's no mean feat, and there's nothing worse than being under pressure when you've got to deliver. You know, there's no getting away from a statement. It's either right or it's wrong. You know, so I mean, you can't. There's no leeway for you know, like in an artistic view with the way you can be. So you like it because you do, but no. So Karen, thanks very much. It's a bit long-winded, but thank you very much. We do appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jeff.
Great, Jeff, thanks very much. If there's no questions for Jeff on that, we can move on to the breaches, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, Chairman.
Ian, sorry, Ian's got some. Sorry, Ian, just your hand.
Yes, thank you, Chair. At the risk of repetition, it is a very pleasing report, Karen. I'm perhaps going off at a little tangent, Jeff, but there was mention of Prudential and lack of information from them at our last meeting. I think it was included in the breaches report, wasn't it? And at that time, they were blaming their difficulties on a software update, I think, was the explanation given. Are you in a position to give us an update on the position at the moment? I.e., has the problem been resolved?
I think when we subsequently did a bit more deep diving into the issue, Ian, it wasn't as simple as just a software issue. There seemed to be personnel issues as well in that a number of the relationship management guys, people who knew the LGPS side of the business had moved on as well. So that caused issues as well. You know, we've had affirmation and you know, letters of comfort from Prudential that they still value the LGPS as a business segment within Prudential as an organisation, and they are still continuing to commit to invest in it. So we can only take them at their word because we are in the middle of a contract with them, as are, you know, a number of other. They are the default provider in local government and in Wales. So, you know, there is a collective force there to lobby them to make these improvements and invest in the business as far as the LGPS is concerned. Hopefully, it's just a timing issue. I don't know if we can confirm, Karen, if we have subsequently received the valuations now, but I don't know if you can.
We haven't received them, no, not yet.
Oh, not yet.
No, not yet. We are chasing them.
So these are on a consolidated basis for us as the admin authority. Presumably, as individuals, hopefully, if you as an individual have not received your valuation from AVC in a timely manner, you will be chasing them up, because the contractual relationship for that AVC provision is between the individual and the AVC provider. What we're required to produce is one big number saying you have this amount outstanding and out for investment with members associated with your fund. We don't, you know, we are not privy because, for example, you as a member, Ian, would be at liberty to increase, decrease your contribution should you so wish, or move it from fund to fund, and we would not be at liberty. We would not be a party to that information.
Yeah, so thanks for the update, Jeff. You've just reminded me that I should have also declared in this item, given it's come up now, that I do have AVCs with Prudential, and indeed I've received compensation from them for late information. So, well, I've declared that now. So I'll ensure it's on the form as well.
Okay. Right. We have another hand, which is David White.
I know we get these breaches reports on a regular basis, and part of me says, why don't people take note? Once they do a couple of breaches, you think they get their house in order. I know there might be outside influences impacting on why they don't get things, but to me, it's like, they should get it in order, because, if they did it once or twice, me asked for it. There should be, you think that they get to the understanding that you've got to pay within a certain time. But I do understand there could be outside influences on why sometimes, we're out of their control.
Thanks, David. I think we've skipped an item. That's the next item on the agenda, but it's connected to AVCs, as Ian says, and it's a matter of information flow. But the general issue about breaches, I think Chairman will take detailed questions on that at the next item on the agenda, David.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. I see no other hands. Thanks, Jeff. We'll move on to breaches then, if that's okay.
David was ahead of the game.
Yeah. I bet you've got a question, David.
Yeah.
Well, for the sake of time management, I mean, members are used to receiving this report, and you can see the new breaches since the last time that were reported to Chairman. Yeah, happy to take questions.
Well, my question is, not surprisingly, is why don't people learn? They've got to understand that they can. They've got to send stuff in. They've got to send money in, and they got to make payments. No. I understand there could be outside influences, but to me, it just seems to be continuously all the time, and I say outside influences could have an impact on the on why they don't pay it. But to me, I think it just seems to be a regular pattern.
As previously communicated, David, I know these breaches are anonymized and for the right reason. However, your observation is valid, and obviously in normal circumstances for repeat offenders, we would undertake some serious remediation action in respect of it. However, noting who they are, in that they are extremely small employers in respect to the late, because you referenced the late payment of contributions. They're extremely small employers with one member in respect of it. With the best will in the world, they are trying their best, and you can only take their word for it that they are, and they don't have the resource or time to commit to it, to address it as a critical issue. And in terms of materiality financially, I mean, it probably cost us more to write the letter, write the email, chase it up, receive the because we have fined them in the past. We've tried financial penalty. That has had political and other repercussions in there. That was appropriate. So they're aware of their obligations. And I think this is connected to another item on the agenda later on in terms of the admin strategy that the fund implements and is sort of the quasi contract that we have with our employers, and our expectations of their roles and responsibilities for being a scheduled or an admitted body in the scheme, and we outline our responsibilities to them as their admin authority, but they also have a responsibility to us, and as you say, one of those is remitting their contributions on time.
Cheers, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments for us, Jeff, on that, on the breaches? No.
Pleased to say again, zero breaches from the GDPR. You know, that one is very much largely in our control, I would suggest. And I know in the early days of the implementation of GDPR requirements, there were a number of GDPR breaches, and Claire, the pensions manager, undertook to take some training of staff to ensure that, you know, there weren't any fat finger or inadvertent sharing of data again, and happy to report no GDPR breaches in that respect. The other breaches, as I said, not apportioning blame, but they're largely without our control because we're dependent on third parties to provide us that information or to provide us with the contributions, and so they're reported here for completeness, but they are largely without our control.
Yeah, okay. Oh, it's good to hear. Right. All right, so we've got 4C, which is the policy update for information.
Thanks, Chairman. This was a number of housekeeping reports taken to Pension Fund Committee for their approval. In that, you know, it's good practice and a requirement in this case to have a policy on how we recover overpayments, or should we recover overpayments, and why they occur. You know, if the event that, for example, you know, a member has sadly passed away, and we haven't been notified, we continue to make a pension payment. You know, A, should we recover it, and B, how we recover it and what we intend to do to recover it, and this pensions policy outlines that. You know, in circumstances like that, and I think the policy makes it clear, you know, you have to treat each case on its own merits, especially where there are compassionate grounds to consider in respect of that overpayment. So it's a stated policy as far as we can lay down in writing what we intend to do, but you know, we'll always treat each case on its merits and apply compassion where appropriate.
Yeah. It's and that would have to be done on what each individual case basis, wouldn't it? I mean, I would hate to think that we'd be accused of being, you know, insensitive at such a bad time. Anyway, so that's good to hear, Jeff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, any questions for Jeff on that one? No. Okay, all right then. Well, that was for information, and then 4D, I think, Competition and Markets Authority, CMA, for information. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. In 2020, we formally, for the first time, we formally set objectives for the appointed investment consultants. This was as a result of a requirement from the Competition and Markets Authority that should a pension fund appoint an investment consultant, they should be appropriately monitored and measured against a set of agreed objectives. And we formally set out our objectives with our appointed investment advisors, Hymans, and this is the periodic update of their progress against those objectives. And I think just without going through it on a line by line basis, on a very dry basis, I just think holistically, you know, we can give Hymans a very solid, and I want to caveat this. I am a hard marker, so I want to caveat this. I would give them a very solid 8 out of 10 for their advice and service to date. So in terms of from where we are, or from where we were to where we are, I think the level of advice, service, support in terms of the very fast changing and increasingly legally complex world of pensions. They have definitely added value in terms of the heavy lifting, in terms of reporting requirements, adherence to statutory responsibilities, dealing with TCFD requirements going forward, readying us for those requirements moving forward. So in that respect, I definitely think they've been a very welcome addition to the pension fund since their appointment in 2015. I think they were originally appointed.
Yeah. Oh, good. Right. Well, that's also good to hear. This again, it just seems that your jobs, are becoming more and more complex and in depth. I mean, it's not quite what the job originally started off to. We're gonna have to have a job evaluation, I think, Jeff. Okay, we're on 4E, I think, pension admin update, and again for information.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Ian, I just your hand.
Just one question for Jeff, and noting his reputation as a harsh marker. I'm just wondering, is this document being used as a tool? I have Hyman's been informed what they need to do to gain those 2 lost marks. Is there a dialogue with improving what's already acknowledged to be a very good service to us, but improving that going forwards? Is this document a living, usable document?
It is, Ian, and those eagle-eyed amongst you will recognise that largely those objectives have remained the same since last time, and you're quite right. They should be refreshed for the evolving landscape that I referred to. And I suppose that there should be a formal review of it. There's a notional review of it because there are no red flags as a result of that service, and hence, if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach to that level of service. And it's largely qualitative in nature rather than hard and fast. But you're quite right, Ian, that a formal exercise going through it line by line, I suppose, and appraising and identifying improvements would be useful. However, Karen on a quarterly basis does undertake a full review of the invoicing and billing that we receive from them, going through it, that they are doing what they're saying they're doing. Are those charges appropriate for that level of service? Challenging, did we really need 2 consultants on that call, etc., etc. So there is challenge and on the financial aspects of it, and especially Karen, she runs a tight ship in that regard.
So which one of you is Revel Hallward and which one of you is perhaps Jeff never gives a 10 here. You never know. Yeah, that's good to hear. And again, thanks to Karen and the team for doing that, because that scrutiny is something which we're doing from above, but the actual nitty-gritty of it is coming from your team. So that's fabulous. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Is that all right, Ian, or do you want to?
No, that's absolutely answered my question, and yeah. I'm pleased to hear it. To be frank, it's what I imagined would be happening anyway.
Okay, we'll watch this space and see what happens next year. If they get a 10 or they're stuck on that 8, I think I might know what's going to happen. But thank you again, Jeff, for that one. Any other questions for Jeff on that item before I don't want to rush people through this. Okay, so I think we're on 4F now, is it? Net zero carbon?
4E, Chairman.
Oh, 4E, yeah. Oh, yeah, that is rushing you through them. 4E, sorry, yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. This was the second housekeeping report I referred to on the agenda, and it relates to David's question earlier on about employers understanding their roles and responsibilities and statutory obligations as a result of being a member of the scheme. And good practice. We've had a pensions admin strategy for a long time. However, the pensions manager Clarion has taken time out to update it for changes in respect of changes in legislation and changes to the scheme. Just to recognise those changes since we originally produced the document. And as I say, this underpins the relationship with employers. So they have no excuses for saying, oh gosh, well, we didn't know we had to do that. You can't expect us to do that because you haven't told us about it. It's all laid out in this admin strategy. A very there are operational details within there, and you can see them from say page 93 onwards, where there are those target times that we refer to in the breaches report, for example, but also very high level expectations as well in terms of compliance with information flow and notification deadlines. So again, it's for information and reflects the changes operationally to the scheme.
Yeah, well, sometimes people need to have it in black and white because they, as you say, they will. So though I didn't know card. Interesting to hear that. So am I assuming then that our sort of pension board members are now operating better and that they're actually replying to statutory data on time, or have we still got people out of time?
The majority of our scheme employers now, well, especially the ones who are a material size. So that's us, Neath Talbot, all the educational establishments, housing associations, etc. All the ones with a critical mass there, Chairman. They've all signed up to the pensions admin system called iConnect, whereby all that information flow is electronic, and once it's updated on their side, gets zipped across to us on a periodic basis, and is a live system. And that has been a great investment by the scheme, especially with those employers of a material size. However, as previously indicated, there are smaller employers, community councils. Community councils in the main are our smaller employers who don't have the resource or perhaps the technical know-how really to engage in that sort of system. I mean, there was financial assistance offered, in the early days, because for licensing, etc., for the iConnect scheme, because it's in our mutual benefit that this information is presented on a timely basis, and the scheme did assist in that regard in the early days of that system. But again, it's a resource issue with community councils in being able to use it and whether it was useful. And so we still retain a manual process with a number of our smaller employers, I'm afraid. Yeah, I suppose, especially some of the community councils, as you said, have got like one clerk, who's doing everything. They haven't even got a financial officer, so that's so are we dare I ask, any breaches within some of those councils still, or? Well, as previously reported, Chairman, we have a repeat offender in terms of contributions. Again, that is a community council. I'd be happy to share the name of that community council with you outside the meeting. However, for fear of embarrassment, I won't mention it here. But they're repeat offenders, and it would seem no amount of compunction or urging or hand holding seems to improve it. I mean, it just seems to be the modus operandi of that community council, and because of the almost nil financial penalty, resultant from the late receipt of those contributions. Hence, we don't feel the need to escalate it. If there was material financial loss month in, month out, I suppose we would have to take remedial steps, but there isn't at the moment.
No, and we're not likely to get pressure from our outside bodies to, because it's a continual thing that we're not doing enough to. I mean, I'm not saying you haven't done enough, but I can see. I think from our previous conversations, you know, it is a hard nut to crack. This one, it's you know, apart from going up there and do it yourself, Jeff, I don't know what else you can do.
No, I think you've got to take it on a relative basis here, Chairman. I mean, it's a very small employer, very small amount of contributions. You know, is it almost worth it? You know, yeah, you just have to accept that you are going to get some late payments, and to your credit, to the Pension Fund Committee's credit, I mean, you were the first. You know, lots of funds still do not publicly and transparently report breaches of this nature. I mean, you can look through the agendas of, you know, lots of, you know, neighbouring, but you know, you will not see a breaches report on there as an agenda item going forward. You know, we're being full and transparent in reporting these items, fair or foul, to you for consideration and scrutiny. So you know, that I think that's got to be a plus to start with, that we're even reporting it.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Any questions for Jeff on that item, the pensions admin update? No. Okay, then we'll move on. Not so swiftly we miss it. 4F.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just scrolling down my paperwork now. This was you know, quite a historic report and a landmark report that was taken to committee on the 2nd of December. And I know lots of the members of the local pension board took part in the scoping session, the workshop, the very robust workshop on the 26th of October, which preceded the writing of this paper. And I'd very much like to thank all members of the local pension board who took part in that very robust debate and workshop, which manifested itself in the paper that you've got before you. You know, I know most of you there were present and took part in it, so I won't rehash that. But the paper you've got before you is sets out the commitments of the fund in respect of its net zero ambitions leading up to 2037. And it's not a binary approach that we're just looking at the carbon position. There's a whole raft of things behind that headline. Obviously, everyone will focus in on that headline, but equally as important is the adoption of the fund's responsible investment beliefs that were teased out of the questionnaire, and again the workshop whereby the members of both the Pension Fund Committee and the Pension Board were quizzed and asked about how they thought their investment beliefs should be deployed within the fund. And then also importantly, in C in the recommendations there, you can see that again, it's not a binary approach of just reducing carbon intensive stocks or excluding fossil fuels. It's a very much more holistic, nuanced approach that will also consider opportunities that will benefit from the transition to a lower economy, even if it means investing in perhaps companies or stocks which have a slightly higher carbon footprint now, but in 2 or 3 years they will be contributory to that net zero journey. And again, the third strand of that strategy is again the engagement piece in ensuring that all, because obviously we can't achieve this alone. We very much rely on the market and investee companies to adopt this change alongside us and to refocus their activities, to ensure that their activities are carbon aware, carbon efficient, and will assist us going forward. We cannot do this in isolation. So that's why that engagement piece there is equally important as well. And I know, you know, Friends of the Earth and other lobby groups are very skeptical about the benefits of engagement, but you know, we're getting results out of it. I mean, Shell, for example, their recent announcement, they're relocating back to the UK. They have announced a whole raft of remuneration and policy targets that are connected to climate change and retilting the business into a clean energy business, and so that wouldn't have happened without heavy lobbying engagement from investors, and we would lose that opportunity to engage with them if we just disinvested. So I think. I think it's an important element of the strategy, but one which is probably overlooked and undermined. And I know Ian has sat in previously in his guise as chair with training sessions and sessions that we receive from our engagement managers with WPP. So you can see that it is active, it is ongoing, it is behind the scenes almost, but it is having an impact, and probably not a yes, it's all going to change tomorrow impact that a lot of people would want, but it's moving in that right direction, and this measured, steady, incremental approach that we've adopted so far has really proved dividends for us. I mean, I don't rehash the recognition in the awards, etc., but it's I think that the strategy and the approach adopted has been validated to date, and I see no evidence to suggest that it should change materially. But this is, make no mistake, this is a material step and an aspiration and a line in the sand that this pension fund committee has taken, and is well ahead of lots of public and other pension funds have made. They're still talking about 2050, 2040. Some of you may also ask why 2037. There's a logic in that. It equates to 3 political terms from next May. So there's some degree of accountability to whoever sits in the chair of the pension fund committee to deliver by 2037. Happy to take questions, Chairman. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions on this one.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Peter, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before I comment on this item, I would like just to pick up on a comment Jeff made in a previous item, in which, Jeff, you referred to the increasingly complex world of pension funds. Sadly, I'm a member of USS. You may be aware that USS is facing some little local difficulties at the moment, which I hope will be resolved. But nevertheless, they've got themselves into a staggering mess in terms of overcommitment and so forth. And I, as a pensioner in receipt of a pension from USS, I think I rather envy you guys who are in a rather safer world of the local government scheme. Anyway, having said that, in terms of the item itself, yes, we've come through COP26. And of course, COP26 had the aspiration of a 1.5 degrees Celsius maximum global temperature increase. Sadly, of course, the current expectation from the climate science community is that at best we're looking at 2.4 in terms of the commitments that were made by governments and their representatives at COP26. And that, of course, presupposes that all those commitments are actually delivered. And some of us would be a little sceptical about the likelihood of that. And if we don't, we're heading towards anything up to possibly a 3.1 world by the end of the century. So why do I make these points? I make these points because, of course, the fossil fuel industry was incredibly well represented in Glasgow at COP26. Indeed, I think had probably the largest representation of any sectoral group. And one can't help wondering to what extent they must have had some influence over the eventual decisions made by individual governments. And I'm still of the view, first of all, I recognise, as Jeff has just been saying, and I fully recognise that progress is being made, that the 2037 target adopted by recommended at that meeting and adopted by the committee and by the council at its meeting recently represents a further step forward. But we have to recognise too that 2037 is another 16 years away, and meantime climate change will continue to develop in all its impacts: temperature rises, sea level rise, increasing complexity of weather events and so forth. And while I recognise that we're talking about carbon engagement across the whole of the investment portfolio and not just the fossil fuel industry, and that I recognise as important, I'm disappointed, I have to say, I am disappointed that the committee and the council didn't take the opportunity to commit to full divestment within a short period of time from the fossil fuel industry. I know that would not make a significant difference in terms of likely outcomes globally and locally, but it's making a gesture, it's making a statement and saying the fossil fuel industry is a major contributor to the problem. And moreover, they in the past have gone out of their way to dismiss the climate change issue, to understate it, and quite frankly to have lied in relation to their own research findings and the research findings of others. And I still have the view that we should, while accepting the overall strategy, which I think is right, the engagement strategy, which obviously has sense, I believe that we should be committing to complete 100% divestment from fossil fuel investments. And I'm saddened, therefore, that this is not happening and the committee didn't take that view, and so forth. In terms of the paper, incidentally, there seems a bit of confusion. It refers at the bottom, towards the bottom of page 116 of our papers, to Swansea County's wider aim of achieving net zero by 2040, and it doesn't. The council is committed to net zero for Swansea by 2050, and of course for the council by 2030. So I'm not quite sure where that 2040 figure comes from. But as I say, overall, I think while I recognise the progress that is being made, I'm disappointed that we haven't seized the opportunity to commit to divesting completely from fossil fuels within a short period of time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter. I think before I guess Jeff comes back on it, but you know, I think as Jeff said, as a committee, we've pushed ourselves forward to trying to make a difference. I know it's as has been suggested by Jeff, it's not quick enough. It won't be quick enough. I understand that, but I think along with people like yourself who do make a difference because you're making people think and reassess and get their act together a bit quicker. I mean, we've got COP27 coming up next year. Hopefully by then they can sort of be looking at the results over the last year, because things seem to be going quite quickly in terms of climate change. That will, you know, emphasize what's needed. I sincerely hope that what you're suggesting is not going to happen, which is the you know, the higher level of climate change temperatures. But I think, you know, we are making a difference. We couldn't just, nobody could just stop investing straight away. It would send the industry into meltdown. So I mean, but the very fact that we are doing our bit is making a difference, and that they are, as an industry, will have to sit up and think, hang on, these people are serious. They've made a commitment. Oh, it's 2037, I think is what's in the paper there. You know, that might not be quick enough, but I mean, that might change. Clive is on a mission with the committee. I think, you know, he would have had it next year if he could have done, but it was realistically the date that they could do. So appreciate what you say. I fully agree with what you're saying, but I think we are as a board certainly committed, as are the committee. Jeff, do you want to come back first before Ian comes in?
No, it's a valid viewpoint from Councillor Jones, and is a viewpoint shared with a number of stakeholders. I mean, lots of stakeholders want and expect complete fossil fuel divestment. However, you know, as a committee and as officers providing their advice, we have to provide a balanced, holistic view on how best to achieve the overall outcome to address climate change. And I would suggest that a lot of Councillor Jones's comments around the fossil fuel industry reflect on where it has been, where it was, in terms of, you say, about the lies spread, about the research, about how it's taken advantage of natural resources. I suppose what we're trying to do with that important element of our strategy, the third part of it, the engagement piece, is that these are huge companies with huge intellectual capital at their disposal. Wouldn't it be better to get them now to change, deploy that capital in a responsible way, deploy that capital to invest in a clean, green future, and sensibly, these large oil companies, their long-term objectives are to refocus themselves into clean energy companies. For example, I know that part of Shell's business plan includes just basically being a clean energy provider, having nothing to do with oil. However, lots of their legacy business, lots of their legacy streams, and very much, you know, the economy and the world as a whole is still very much reliant on fossil fuels for travel, transportation. At least half of our heating requirements still come from fossil fuels. So to completely make a judgment about that sector of the investment universe is something that is a line that we haven't determined to cross as yet, because we still favour that engagement approach, and because, as I said before, we're not going to achieve this in isolation. We need everyone to move forward with us. Why are the fossil fuel companies any different? And to demonize them in that way for their past misdemeanors, if they are willing now to change and invest in a clean future and retilt themselves into a green company, would seem to be an opportunity not to miss. If, though, Councillor Jones, they go back on their word and they continue, you're quite right to challenge the committee and say, look, they've had their chance, they haven't changed, they're still doing everything exactly as they've done in the past. I think we should divest from them, but to do that I don't mean this disparaging, but as a knee-jerk reaction, as a demonstration, oh yes, Swansea Pension Fund is serious because they've divested from. I think we've taken a more measured, holistic, intelligent approach to it, because as I say, the metrics would indicate that what we're doing has a far greater impact on climate change improvement than purely divesting from fossil fuel companies, as demonstrated in countless reports that we've taken, and that the energy sector only accounts for 25% of carbon emissions in the universe, whereas we've reduced carbon emissions by 58%.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Jeff. I mean, I fully understand what you're saying, and I don't want to get into an argument with you.
No,
we're on the same side. But, well, I mean, we have a difference of view on this, and the clock is ticking. This is the point. The clock is ticking. Climate change is continuing to worsen globally, and here in Swansea, as it will. And I just think that we ought to be doing it. Yes, it would be a gesture, as I said earlier, and a political gesture at that. I just think it's a gesture we ought to make. But nevertheless, we are on the same side, and we've got a difference of view as to how to proceed. Well, I won't pursue the matter anymore. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Ian, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Alan. I do welcome this report, which I think a number of have been involved in putting input into. I think, apart from personal questions from members such as how do I get ill health retirement and what does my statement mean, I think this area is where we get the most questions from members. So there's certainly intense interest from members in this area, and as Jeff's alluded to, from outside bodies as well. As we've just seen, actually, it's an area where opinions can very validly differ as to the right approach. But I think we have set a very challenging time scale for those who are responsible for implementing it. And I think it behoves us just to remind ourselves as a board, and perhaps send a reminder to committee, that having set that time scale, we also need to do our part in ensuring that that time scale is met. It's not just a matter of passing it over now to Jeff, Karen, the people we'll engage, our consultants, etc. But we need to be involved in that as well, and perhaps doing some of the contribution to that. And also, I'd also like to pay tribute, as Councillor Lockyer did, to Councillor Lloyd. I think whatever you may think about the speed of this, whether it could be done, whether or attempted to be done quicker, a commitment to 2037 will fulfil Councillor Lloyd's ambition of putting Swansea Fund way ahead of the pack amongst all the England and Wales LGPS funds. That's all I'd want to say, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Ian. David, you've got your hand up, yeah?
Yeah, no, I welcome Peter's comments, because, like you say, to me, I find the green economy very exciting. I think it's very much, it's going to really, really benefit the pension fund, and outside of this committee, I'm involved in another committee, my councillor role in Bridgend, where we're looking at the green economy, and there's a lot of avenues there, where we can gain advantage of the pension fund. But I'm also wary, if we do it too quickly, and members say to me, and it's not really the best straw poll I can say, but I do chat to members, about the environment and how the pension fund works, and I get those views from oh no, we got to make sure that the pension funds is there for me to have a pension, to other views then saying no, we've got to really fight the environment, and some are willing to see a small impact on their pension fund. But to me, I think what Swansea Council are doing, I think is very much a leader on this now across the UK. I would even dare to say across the UK, in the targets that they aim to reach. And I would very much welcome what they're doing. And but like I say, I am wary that if we go too quickly, the impacts not just on the pension fund, but also the impacts on employment, those kind of things as well, where people are relying on wages, people at the moment. And I think the pace that Swansea is setting, I think it can be achievable without too much harm done to pension fund, but also to outsiders interested around employment. And in regards to Shell, I very much welcome us being involved with Shell and not withdrawing our investment, because I think we can then have a say in what Shell does. We can use our strength in our investment to make sure we keep Shell and other companies on their toes.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, thanks, David. Any other comments? Do you want to sort of sum that up, Jeff? Or
thanks, Chairman. No, just to reiterate, and it's obviously an area which will garner a lot of debate and interest. But as I say, echo Ian's words. I mean, it was a landmark report, and off the back of that report, and when it was reported to committee, I've had countless emails, telephone calls from interested providers and managers and investee companies, excited to hear about that and wanting to talk about opportunities they've got to help us to get to that challenging date. So it's obviously made waves in the industry in that regard. I'd say kudos to yourselves and the committee for the work you did on the 26th of October and the subsequent paper that was approved.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we can't forget our obligation to the pension funders or fund people members within this, where we are got to seek the best returns for the money that they've invested. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the days when we can really be investing in the green energies, as David said. That so it's a case of us transferring our investments, perhaps from certainly when we finish with carbon fuels to green fuels, and that will, because that's an industry in itself, and it'll be a turnaround. So hopefully the job losses and things that we're cautious about won't actually be so great, if any at all. Yeah.
Yeah, in line with the strategy, Chairman, that we've outlined and was approved there, is very much identifying opportunities. The second strand of the strategy wasn't actually, clearly going out and searching for those opportunities which support that transition economy. You're already doing this. I mean, we've got solar and wind infrastructure in there in our Global Renewable Power Fund. You committed over £35 million worth of investment into that fund. In the private equity funds, there are lots of clean tech funds, smart metering, smart software investments in that respect. So that journey has already begun in that respect. We're not just being as binary as excluding carbon intensive stocks. We're already searching for the accretive investments that will benefit that journey and help us along that journey, rather than just reducing our carbon exposure, which is an almost passive defensive approach.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and okay, then we'll move on then from that. Of course, item agenda 5 is to the exclusion of the public. So I will need somebody to propose this. The public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as set out in the paragraphs listed below of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information and Variation Wales Order 2007, subject to the public interest test, where appropriate, being applied. So could I have a proposer for that? That we move into private.
I'll move, Chair. I'll move it.
Thank you very much. All right, Jeremy, have we stopped recording?
Right, bear with me. The live feed is stopped and the recording is stopping now.